Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Hey, well, thank you, Sean. Once again, this is Mitch. How you guys doing? I have a special guest with me, and we're going to talk to you about an award that we are both excited about. So, from the Beyond Solitaire podcast, and for those of you that were at either of our roundtables, Liz, introduce yourself to the No Dice audience.
Hey everybody, my name is Liz, Liz Davidson. I have a solo gaming channel called Beyond Solitaire, and as Mitch mentioned, a podcast called Beyond Solitaire. I also review solo board games for the Dice Tower, and I have a particular interest in war and historical games these days.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's an amazing podcast because I was on it once, but it really is. She gets the folks to come on her podcast that I wish I could get. So, please check it out. And she's one of the more interesting people you'll meet in gaming. But we're here today to talk about this endeavor you and I both seem to be in, you a little bit deeper than me, called the Zenobia Award. Zenobia Award.
Absolutely.
What's that all about?
Well, it's called the Zenobia Award because it's named after this absolutely awesome Queen of Palmyra who gave Rome a real run for its money at one point during her lifetime. And we named this award after her because the award is devoted to trying to get more designers from diverse backgrounds. So women, people of color, members of the LGBTQ community into war and historical game design. So the idea of the award is that rather than just say, "Oh, do you have a design? Submit it. We'll judge you right now." The idea is to get some proposals, choose the most interesting proposals, and then mentor people through the process, and hopefully and then be able to judge some really interesting final products that then will ideally make it into the wider market.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. So let's talk about why an award like this to me is so important. Because, okay, I'm in that group to a certain extent, but you got a lot of old white guys that design board games that play these games, but that doesn't represent our population.
No, it does not. And I mean, for the record, I buy and play and thoroughly enjoy mini games that are designed by old white guys, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I also think that our community really, really needs to widen its scope, both in terms of who is participating generally. If you go to a war game day, it is sometimes disappointing to see a lack of diversity among the people playing. I'd like to see a more diverse and interesting community. And I also think that among war game designs that we can have a richer experience by having people from different backgrounds with different perspectives giving us their interpretations of history and, aspects of history that they want to focus on through their games.
Yeah, and that brings up an amazing point. So going back to the last Connections that was held in person, I noticed that there were a lot of females there, not so much people of color, but I noticed it was a little bit more inclusive. What do you think our community is missing by not having their voices?
I think I actually think about this from my perspective as a teacher as well. I teach Latin. I teach in a very white field. And what that eventually has led to be honest, I love my colleagues in academia, but you end up with sort of an echo chamber where people are publishing on the same topics again and again and kind of becoming obsessed with the same ideas again and again. And it takes new people with new perspectives to kind of break that pattern and lead you in more interesting intellectual directions. So at the time that I left academia, late antiquity as a field was starting to have more women in it. And the books that they were writing were different and interesting compared to, sort of the older generation of things that had been produced. And I would like to see that happen in wargaming as well. And I mean, I'm not saying that I don't like games about World War II, for example. But, I think that we could have, a more global perspective. I think that we could focus on events that are a little bit more different and interesting compared to the current market. And I think that we would think more deeply about history and appreciate it more. And I think appreciate each other more with a richer constellation of viewpoints to enjoy.
I agree. Let me ask a question. These are, by the way, Liz and I, we talk, well, we chat all the time. So we felt that we were going to do this without setting up questions ahead of time. Um, I look at the success of the game put out by Fort Hunt Games on Kickstarter, Votes for Women, and it was backed very quickly. Would that be a topic you think that minority gamers would cover more? That they would start covering different topics?
Um, I think that I think that if there are games coming out at different topics, then we're going to want to look at and cover different topics because we'll cover the games that come out. I mean, it's always a weird circular thing, right? It's like, oh, yeah, I want something new, but I can't think of anything new myself. I'll wait for something new to come out. And then I will talk about it. And actually, women's suffrage has been a thing in games. It must have just been in the water because Fort Circle came out with Votes for Women, and also The Vote from Hollandspiel has also just arrived at market. And I think that Hollandspiel is actually a really interesting example of people deliberately trying to make games that are a little bit different.
And you
And I
talked
think
me into
it's
buying one of their games, which I've yet to play, my friend.
which one?
The Wars of Marcus Aurelius.
Get your life together. Play it now.
All right,
Stop
I
this
will do that.
podcast immediately.
I should.
But I also think that for example, David Thompson has had a lot of success by choosing quirky battles that are little known, even though World War II is his particular favorite era. The lens that he looks at it through is different, and that's what makes the game so interesting. Pavlov's House, I didn't know anything about the Battle of Stalingrad until I played Pavlov's House, and now I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what went down. The same thing for Castle Itter. I had no idea that like at the very end of World War II, there was a bizarre battle where, the SS was rampaging one more time and a motley crew of people of different nationalities gathered to defend the castle. I think that looking at those human stories is a new approach in wargaming compared to most of what I see.
Oh,
And
he's a genius. And he is. He puts out amazing games. For those of you that do not know this, yes, the same David Thompson that did Undaunted.
yes, that guy. No one knows who he is.
No one knows who he is.
But I mean, I'm saying that, David gets good press for his games because he's tapping into something different. And the thing is that if you have more people who have different backgrounds and different viewpoints, you're going to get more and more and more of that rich gaming experience because you're just going to be able to choose from more, experiment with more. And, I think that, it's something that we're trying to get at through the Zenobia Award.
Yeah.
It's also just true, I wouldn't say that for me it's been particularly hard to be a woman in wargaming. I don't have any particular tales of woe or anything like that. But I do notice that it's harder to find other women to talk to in my branch of board game reviewing. There aren't that many female reviewers of war games. And sometimes I feel kind of by myself out there, and I'd really like for others to come and join me.
Yeah. One thing just to put out there, because you have a lot of scared white guys that feel like their dice are going to get taken away by women, that whatever comes from this inclusion is good for the hobby. You could still play your James Dunnigan games from the 1970s, your John Hill games. We're not taking those away from you, but we're trying to expand. In the last, I'd say 5-10 years, we've had a renaissance of gaming. And a lot of that renaissance is covering new and interesting topics, putting great mechanics out there. It's time to kind of, as you said, widen the aperture and see what's out there by being more inclusive. So for anybody out there that's like, these damn people are going to take my dice away. Well, if you feel that way, maybe we should take your dice away. However, there's no downside for our hobby whatsoever with this award.
No, definitely not. I think some things. So one thing that makes it very interesting to try to talk about and promote inclusion is that I think some people feel that having to share the space and be less prominent in that space is somehow a loss, but no one's actually taking anything away. You're just growing.
Right.
It's actually kind of sad to me that people would see that as a threatening thing. I mean, first of all, games are a hobby. Nobody's going to tell you what you can and can't play. Even if I personally disagree with the theme of a game or whatever, I've talked about this before. I mean, nobody is going to come and tell you can't do a certain thing.
Right.
But, if you're adding, I mean, what's wrong with having more? I am all about having more. And the other thing is that, I don't know, who wants to be part of a community that is unwelcoming? I think that the other thing that is true is people who are from marginalized communities do often feel even more marginalized within the war and historical game community. And that's not good. That's something we should be actively working to fix because, first of all, it benefits us. I think what people forget is that lack of inclusion hurts the people who are in the club already as much as it hurts the people who are out in the cold. We might not realize it, but we are, not able to be our fullest and most interesting selves without being part of a diverse community.
Right. I think you learn more through diversity. When Volko asked me, we'll go through the award itself. I think I responded right away. Yeah, sign me up, whatever. Because at No Dice, we've always tried to include women, people of color, LGBTQ, where we could find them, and it hasn't been easy. A lot of it is because we do focus on war games, just like you do. Liz, if I would have known you maybe 2 years ago, I would love to have had you on my staff. Now I'll say, can the 30 of us join your staff? But we've always done that, and that's one of the reasons why I really wanted you and Sarah Shaw to speak at the first roundtable, because I just think, hearing from the same old faces, it gets a little boring. So the message we definitely want to make sure it gets out there is, this is good. This is good. So we know who Zenobia is, and I had to look that up. But what exactly do these burgeoning developers need to submit for this award? Because it's not open to any kind of gaming.
So I have to refresh myself on that myself because I'm on the board, but I did not have a personal role in, writing all of this material. Like I helped approve the rules. I looked at them, but I did not write them. But the idea is that it doesn't have to be a war game. So this is not, only Hex Encounter people are welcome. But it does have to be a historical game. And I think that the point of that, right, is because we're looking for people who have something interesting to say about history and who want to express that through a game. And whatever form that takes, I'm pretty sure that we are open to that. I'm looking at the application right now.
I'm looking at the rules. So we got it covered.
The idea, right, is if you have something to say about history and we can hash that out on a table, then we want to hear it.
Right. And you mentioned it before, but I think it's worth re-amplifying. You don't have to come to this with a finished game. This is really canvassing for ideas for historical gaming from a wider audience. So it's not like you have to have this thing play tested 700 times. Once you submit, I believe that you guys will go and select more than one, if I'm correct.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how many. I think part of that depends on volunteer interest, which fortunately is high at the moment. But I think from what I understand, so Valko Rinke and Harold Buchanan are the originators of this idea, and the rest of us have joined them to help. But from what I understand, from what we've discussed, the idea is to take as many proposals as we think we can take on and look good, and try to get as many people through the process as possible.
Right. And I volunteered, because it says here I'm a volunteer, to be one of the mentors and help in developing. And I've already gotten some really good questions from some people that I said, you should apply for this, because it's not so much that your community's voice needs to be heard. You as an individual, I feel, needs to be heard within this community. And I hope that they submit. I'm not going to say who, because I don't want, I'm not playing
Of
favorites.
course.
Yeah, of course. But, I was excited that it wasn't a best design of a finished product. And I think that is good for a reason, for one reason especially, is that you're going to get, and if you go to the website, ZenobiaAward.org, you have some heavy hitters here that are going to help you develop these games.
Yeah, and I think it's important for another reason, which is, so when we talk about privilege, I think a lot of people feel very uncomfortable if they are white, and we are talking about white privilege. But I think the best way I've ever heard it described, right, is that it doesn't mean that everything in your life was easy for you. But it does mean that your race didn't make things any harder for you. If you had a problem, it wasn't that. And I think one of the places where this shows up and we don't necessarily realize it, and I mean, yes, I am a woman. I'm in a marginalized community within wargaming, I would say. But I do have, the benefit of being white. And it is easier for me to make connections, to be taken seriously. And that's not right, but it's true. And getting people into networks where they feel supported is a really major step in increasing and helping diversity in a community. Because if you said, oh, just design something and we'll take the best design, you're not offering real inclusion and engagement at that point. You're just expecting someone to meet your arbitrary standard from outside of your community without actually interacting or helping anybody get into the community that you want more people in. And so I think that the mentoring aspect is really crucial, because it's really about the networking and about forging connections between people. I'm hoping personally that from this process that I get to know a lot of up and coming designers, that those up and coming designers get to know a lot of heavy hitters within wargaming, and that everyone is enriched by the experience, because we've all forged a new network that can continue to grow.
Yeah, and that is key. I have folks that come to me all the time, as I'm sure you do, about, I have a really great idea for a game and how do I get in there? And the reason why they come to us is because of the connections. Because I could give them to, a David Thompson or, an Uwe, somebody that owns a game company that I trust and respect. Those connections are extremely important. I think that is the biggest benefit of this award, or just like you said, are those connections.
Yes. And then my hope is that the long running consequence of having this award, so I hope that not only we have it this year and it's a great success, but we have it over several years, is that, the landscape of who you're able to see as an important connection will also change. Because right now within wargaming, most of the, more important, quote, or influential figures do happen to be white men of a certain age. And
you could say old. I'm not going to get offended.
And the idea, right, is to get to a point where instead of having that particular power dynamic and structure, you have people who are important to talk to, who are from other backgrounds and other communities and who have other viewpoints, because that expands everything for everyone.
Yeah, well said, my friend, as usual. So the eligibility, well, let's first talk about the schedule of, because this is going to come out, hopefully I'm going to get this out tomorrow morning. You roughly have about a month and a week to send in your applications, but the applications are online and you don't have to write a doctoral thesis for it. And the winners will not be announced until next October 15th. So
Yeah.
there's plenty of time. And to believe it or not, when it comes to game development, that is not a very long period of time. But we're going to go to next of some of the folks that are involved here. That yes, with so much support, that is plenty of time. And I'm excited to see what games come out from this because I think they're going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm so excited too. For me, this is partially about wanting to be in a rich community where everyone feels welcome and supported and appreciated because I just believe in that as a thing. And also, this is self-interested because I want to play some interesting games that say something that is meaty and interesting to engage with for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing people probably realize about me, but not you as much, that we're gamers, that we want more and better games for us to play and talk about because we have an addiction.
I can quit anytime I want.
No, you can't. No, you can't. And if you thought about it, I wouldn't let you. I wouldn't let you. So one of the things that should be impressive to anybody that's thinking of joining is the folks that are on the board. Liz is on the board. Let's just go through some of these names. Sebastian Bay, one of my buds, knows how to sling nukes. If anybody remembers from the ICBM contest we had, Rex Brynan. I always say his name wrong. It's Brendan, right?
It's Brynan.
Brynan. Liz Davidson's on this list.
Who's that?
Yeah. Volko Runke, who, if you haven't played any of his games, you're not that big of a gamer. He has some of the most amazing games that have won some great awards. In fact, when I was at his house, I wanted to take pictures of it, and I thought it would be rude to ask. But, which are some of the judges or members of the board that stand out to you?
So actually, just to clarify, the judges and mentors, those groups have not been fully decided yet. There will be some overlap between the board and judges, but we are making every effort that we can to make sure that every entry that comes in is assessed by a diverse group.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically everybody on the board is amazing. I want to point out that Christian Hentz is fantastic. Actually, my episode with her on my podcast is my most listened to one. And for good reason, because she has this amazing course about gaming world history where she teaches world history by having students simulate and then create their own histories and analyze each other's histories. It is really something.
It's an amazing podcast. I've listened.
But I mean, Christian Hentz is like awesome. I am so happy as an educator in person that I got to meet her through this. Natalia Wojtowicz is also really cool. She's done gaming for NATO. I mean, how great is that? And
and she asked very hard questions when I spoke at Georgetown.
She doesn't ask hard questions. She asks insightful questions, and you just need to learn. No, I'm just kidding.
For me, they were hard.
And Sebastian is amazing. Like, one thing that I really like about this whole list is that so many of the people on the list are educators of one kind or another and committed to the development of a person and to, into pushing ideas and pushing thoughts and, maybe looking at games in a different way because of that. I'm actually really happy with the composition of the board in that respect. And I do want to say, I think that, and this is a legitimate criticism, people have said the board is not diverse enough. And yeah, that's why we're having the Zenobia Award in order to hopefully have new board members in years to come who do, represent a more broad and diverse community. Because you start with who you know and whose free labor you can take advantage of. And
yeah.
And yeah, the board doesn't look like an ideal community. But we also don't have an ideal community yet. We are starting where we are, and we want to push to make things better. And I personally would rather do something than do nothing and wait for the problem to fix itself.
I agree. Could you imagine? I can't even get a guy like Jason Matthews to help me with the game I'm developing. So if you enter this contest, and he did Twilight Struggle, which is probably one of the best games ever made. But he's part of the board, so you'll at least get his input one way or another. I couldn't beg and pay him enough to do that. Folks that enter this contest will get it from folks like him in a collaborative environment, which going back once again, the connections, the brain power behind this is just amazing.
Yeah, I'm just excited to get to know all these people. So I finally got to meet Christina Carl at a board meeting a couple weeks ago. So she's an ESPN writer and baseball pro, and it's just so cool to meet somebody who has such a totally different body of knowledge from what I have. Actually, this is why we need things like the Zenobia Award, right? It's all those different perspectives, different bodies of knowledge that make life interesting and make knowing other people worth it.
Right. And when you look at the different members of the board, she stands out because you're like, wait, she's a baseball writer. But if you know anything about sabermetrics and how that works, that fits very well into game design. So once again, another top-notch person, probably the person I'd like to talk to the most, because I have so many questions concerning sabermetrics. And if you saw the movie Moneyball,
yeah,
you understand kind of what she does or knows about. But yeah, and then like the Christine Hintz podcast was amazing, because to me, that is what this award really tries to give or tries to get out there, is a different way of doing the same old in a refreshing way with totally different perspectives. And if you're not convinced up till now, check out the podcast, Liz's podcast with her, because I think it will change your mind about how this entire award and the movement behind the award is so important.
Yeah, I also I did a little roundtable about Zenobia on my own channel, Beyond Solitaire, and Christiane and Sebastian are both in there with Harold and me, and listening to people who are professors who are currently teaching, university level students or grad students in Sebastian's case, talk about what they want to see and how they want to see things develop is just really awesome.
Yeah, it is definitely. I'm excited for this, and I'm excited to help in any way possible. I think that this is just such a big win for the game. So let's go over what folks out there really need to know. First of all, they should know that this is good. But really importantly, you're going to hear this. You roughly have about 5 weeks to kind of come up with an idea.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be like, I have a complete concept for the game and I'm ready to build a prototype right now. It has to be just a solid, well thought out enough to bring it to life with a little bit of help concept.
Right. So after the 15th, it's a quick turnaround. On the 31st, the contestants will be selected and informed, and then mentors will be assigned. And then it goes on from there, essentially until 15 October, where they announce the award. I still feel, and if you look at like some of the people that are sponsoring this, I still feel that there will be some really good ideas that may not make the cut, that may get the attention of somebody like GMT Games or Nuts Publishing or or Fort Circle Games that say, this is still a good game to put out there. Because I think we're going to get some amazing submissions for this. And I'm interested to see what some of those are, because I think they're going to really kind of look at the broad scope of historical gaming and do things that kind of need to be done. There's a lot of stuff out there that just isn't gamed.
I know. And for me, that's the most exciting part. So this is a terrible analogy, I guess, but it makes me think of, did you ever watch American Idol back in its heyday?
No, I wasn't allowed.
So, the thing that I always found the most striking is that the person who wins American Idol is usually not the person who's the most famous from the season. And similarly, I actually think that we're going to get a lot of really good ideas. I think that the person who wins, that's going to be awesome. But I also think that, we're also going to have other ideas in the field and other people who get a bump from this. And that's what I'm really hoping to see. My goal is for this award to give everybody who participates in it a really solid experience, feedback that is quality and thought out at whatever level they make it to.
So we're looking
And
for the Jennifer Hudson of America's Got Talent. Did I get that
I
right?
mean,
Because
sure.
she
You
didn't
know
win.
what? She did not. Did she? I don't
Okay.
even remember anymore.
She won an Academy Award, though.
I mean, she won at life, and that is the point,
Yeah.
I would say.
Wow,
But
that's awesome.
But what I'm hoping to see, right, is I'm also hoping actually personally that the people who are competing in this know each other during the process and form some sort of cohort where, oh yeah, we did this together, as opposed to I'm competing, I hate everyone. Like, that's not the goal of this. I want wargaming and historical game to be a more supportive community where we're all holding the door open for each other instead of running in and shutting it behind us and bolting it.
Yeah, and that is, if anybody's ever met a game developer, I wouldn't say that there's, okay, so yeah, I'll throw myself in that. There's when you work on a project, there's something paternalistic about it, and you almost shut off any other types of games because you don't want those ideas flowing into yours. You really want to kind of keep it fresh. That, getting these people that are kind of not developers already, well, you may get some that are, but it's kind of changing that dynamic, because I know some devs, and unless it came out of their mouth or something they typed, it's a bad idea. I think that this is going to be a little bit more collegial. And once again, it's changing norms within our community that I can't prove to you that it exists, but I know it's true. That we need to become more welcoming, especially when we develop games.
Yeah, especially because frankly, war and historical games, a lot of people find them very intimidating still. So, it's almost a flex, right? To tell people, "Oh yeah, I'm into war games." And that's not really the way that I would prefer people approach us as a community. I mean, in the end, war games are still games that we play for fun, and everyone should be able to have fun with us. That's the entire point of gaming. And so, we need to really work on being the sort of community where people feel like they can join, as opposed to the sort of community where it's like, what if I don't know enough about tanks to play with these people and not get razzed? Or like,
I don't know anything about tanks, but I've helped
I don't
develop
either.
games that have them in there.
I mean, honestly, my knowledge of non-ancient warfare is growing because I play war games and not the other way around. So,
Right. Yeah. And that's something too. And I've often said this. I go, our community, the members of our community are the worst PR for our community, because when somebody asks, what do you do for fun? Which even, when you get older, people still ask you that question. War gamers will never say they war game, because I think that they feel that there's some type of negative connotation with painting lead soldiers in your basement, or pushing around these little pieces of cardboard. There's something about gamers that they just aren't out there and saying, this is what I do, let's go try this. I've always been that way, because I need people to play against. I need people to build armies and play the same games I have. It's even in my community where I war game for the Air Force, I say right away, yeah, I'm a big hobby war gamer. And then people will come to me during a break and they'll whisper in my ear, hey, so am I, but don't tell anybody.
what's not to tell? So, one thing that I think is really interesting about that is that, board gaming, hobby board gaming mainstream is becoming more mainstream right now. It's cool to be a board gamer now. Also, thanks to COVID, nothing really thanks to COVID, but one minor silver lining is that it's cool to be a solo gamer now, which is something that I like to do, and that people, in the early years, people like go, ha ha ha, you don't have any friends. And, there's still people who get worked up about the stigma of solo gaming. Now it's normal and even cool to do.
Right.
And I really think that wargaming is going to, so, others are more pessimistic. I know that especially, Marco Ornato has strong opinions about the hobby as it currently is not being able to survive in the future. But I think wargaming and historical gaming are going to make it. And they're going to make it in part because we're bringing in fresh ideas and fresh perspectives. And I think that the Zenobia Award is deliberately aimed at doing that.
So you're trying to say if we build it, they will come.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it worked. Hey, it worked for the Latin program where I work. We got 750 kids who take Latin. If you make something interesting and compelling and fun where people feel welcome and they feel connected to other people, it will work.
Yes, without a doubt. And this grows the community, which I find to be one of the best things about this, because we need to grow it. And yeah, we need to kind of get out of our parents' basement. I don't live in my parents' basement. And get out there and all be ambassadors, because I've reached out to so many people that I think would that fall under what this award is targeting. And I said, look, you got some really good ideas, and telling me doesn't do anything because I forget things 10 minutes later. But something like this is, to me, first of all, it's important that us as a community that we do this, and two, that this is to get your voice out there. This
Absolutely.
is a great opportunity. Don't
I
miss
hope
it.
so.
Yeah.
I just want to say, by the way, since we've been talking about some difficulties in the wargaming community, I also do want to say that I, as somebody who has entered the wargame community more in the last few years, I have had, some experiences where maybe things are a little bit uncomfortable, especially if we talk about opinions about SS tokens on the board, or the wargame community is not a perfect place. That said, I have had amazing experiences and connections with other people who are enthusiasts for this particular type of game. I have made the strongest connections that I've made within gaming. I find the wargame community that I'm a part of renewing and exciting, and it's an inspirational for me. And I want to make sure that other people coming into wargaming have that experience. And that's something that every single one of us should want. We should want every single person who decides to try to play a war game, even if they decide it's not for them, to go away thinking, man, those people are cool. What they do is really cool, and I like them. And I respect them and what they do. What a neat branch of the hobby.
Yeah. And, one thing about you're one of the most amazing ambassadors for this game, because of your level of excitement. Because, and I'll say it, this is not a bad comment. Sometimes your podcasts are big geek fests, but it just shows,
I'm a big geek. There you go.
Okay, but but it shows the excitement that you have for this game, for this hobby, that to me, you don't see that in a lot of places, man, woman, or Martian, that really folks need to kind of listen to your podcast, because I get excited when I listen to it about gaming all over again. It's like I kind of get renewed with it. So I dig it. And, I'm glad your voice is out there, and I'm glad we're going to get more voices out there with this award.
Yeah, because let it be said, looking over the Zenobia page, I'm probably the least interesting or qualified person on the page. And that's how I like it. I mean, that gives me better podcast fodder, because the point of a podcast is to have interesting people come on and enlighten me. So
I think stop. I didn't even need to look to know you were on the board. Because why wouldn't you? And that's a lot, long and short of it. So yeah, this is a big commercial for Liz, but you will totally enjoy listening to her. And then also for the Zenobia Award, which you can tell by our excitement that we're excited about. Where can folks find this? First of all, how do you spell Zenobia for those? Because
it is Zenobia. And you can find, if you go to zenobiaaward.org, you will find all the information that you need about the Zenobia Award, including who's on the board, what publishers are involved, the rules, frequently asked questions. And also, I have found that, I'll often get messages from Volko or from anybody else on the board who gets a question. We're routinely discussing your questions and your concerns as you communicate with us about the Zenobia Award. So we want to be responsive. We want to make this the best that it can be. If you have a question or a concern, get in touch.
The other thing too is, as you're listening to this podcast, you get to see what Liz looks like.
That's not an advantage.
Huh?
I said that's not an advantage.
But it's the same picture you use elsewhere, right?
It is, yeah. It's just my Facebook profile picture. I don't take a lot of pictures of myself because I'm always so busy looking at everything around me. So that was like the last selfie I've taken. Like it was like last February, right before quarantine.
And you're more than qualified. You went to 2 baller schools, University of Chicago and Yale. So you're smart enough to be on this. You're definitely smart enough to be on.
Okay.
No, yeah, and I'll tell you what. Whoever you mentor in this, if you become a mentor, I think will benefit from that. In my opinion, as long as it's ancients, right?
You know what? We're actually still talking somewhat about the mentoring structure, but what I'm hoping my role is going to be, because I've never developed a game, I actually would love to design a game of my own. I probably would apply for the Zenobia Award if I weren't on the board, and that would just be wrong. But if, I actually hope that I eventually will design something, just because you talk about design and you look at designs enough and you want to. But what I'm hoping my role is going to be is I want to be the person who checks in with at least a subset of applicants and make sure that they're having a good experience. Because to me, so we talk about, what if this award fails? What if, it doesn't, I've seen a lot of sort of poo-pooing at messages on Facebook about things like, oh, well, I don't think this award's going to have the result you think it's going to have. For me, the best result is for the people who go through this process to have a stellar experience with us and to want to stay in this community. So my goal is to get myself into a position where I can check in with people and see how they're doing and make sure they're getting what they need. And it's the teacher in me too, So what I'm hoping is that I will get to be an active part of the process in that sense. I'm really looking forward to, making sure that everybody has the experience they deserve, which is a really good one, and has the affirmation that they deserve, because they'll deserve it.
Yeah, and you bring up something that's really important, that the focus of this award and this whole process, one is, yes, there's going to be a benefit for the community. But I think the folks that are going to go through this are going to have a unique experience that, most other gamers do not get. And I think that sends a great message out there for more inclusion. Because let's hope that they run this thing every year.
That's what I'm hoping. Because, it's not inclusion if you invite, one person from a culture that's not yours over and you have a perfectly pleasant evening and then they leave and they never return. That's not real inclusion. Inclusion is opening the door, holding it open, and actively inviting people in again and again, and giving them a seat at your table and making them a real part of the proceedings forever. And that's what I hope we do.
I think it's a done deal. I think it's going to happen. And folks, get excited about this. Even if you cannot submit for this, somebody that can. And I've reached out to so many folks that, hey, check this out. So when you hear this, if you know somebody that would be amazing for this award, or to enter in this, even I think just entering and getting picked, I think it's just going to be totally amazing, and it's going to be a great ride. But if you guys that are out there listening, get out there and talk about this, and try to get some folks that and like that would be perfect for this experience. Hey, get them up, because I'm looking at the sign up now. Once again, you do not have to write a doctoral thesis in there. It is just go to the webpage, hit apply, answer the questions, check. Yep, I read and accept everything and send it in. It is not too difficult. And
yeah, you can spend your application time.
Liz may finally get the very obscure game on a Roman legion fighting somewhere in history.
Just not one of Caesar's. I love Julius Caesar, but no, I've had enough for now.
She's through with it. Well, I'll tell you
maybe
what.
A game about Elagabalus. Let's do that.
Yeah, you see, I need to get in your head to see and that's the interesting thing that, I've always enjoyed talking to you. You and I totally game totally different things.
We
But
do.
we do. Because I am just not into ancients. But you talked me into getting the Wars for Marcus Aurelius. And I'll tell you what, Hollandspiel puts out some amazing games that I never thought that somebody would put out there. They really do some different things. So, I mean, I've learned a lot. Not Latin.
Yeah.
Though.
Well,
I haven't learned any Latin from you.
I'll give you friend price, not tourist price, on some Latin lessons.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I guess we could wrap this up. We'll send it back to the studio and Sean, but ZenobiaAward.org. And anything else you think that we missed here?
No, just, hey, you know what? If you're out there and you want to break into war and historical gaming and you have an idea, I want to hear your idea. We want to hear your idea. This is the time. This is a sign from the universe to get that application filled out and see what happens.
Awesome. All right, we'll send it back to Sean in the studio, and thank you guys for listening. And there'll be more podcasts on the Zenobia Award because I want to get some of those really cool members of the board on my show, Liz. How do you do it?
I have no idea.
You
Facebook?
arm twist. No, it's people love talking to you. It's like the folks I try to get come on, and Liz has this great podcast. Yeah, I'll do it. So I don't know what it is, but thank you for coming on, and I'm excited for Zenobia.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.